What's up, Hoth heads? It's that time of year again, and the Kessel Toy Run is in full swing. Going on now through December 18th, you can join the force and donate a toy to a hospitalized child who won't be able to make it home for the holidays. You can find out how to donate and the details for this episode on makingstarwars.net or by emailing thekesseltoyrun@gmail.com. Thanks, and may the force be with you.
Tonight, the Bounty Hunter Guild claims that carbonite freezing is a safe and humane way to transport captives. Is it true? We unfreeze our interns later tonight and see if it is.
And can dumping your ship waste attract dangerous creatures? All that and the latest Blurg race results at 11. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Hoth Topics, a podcast about Star Wars. I am joined by a bounty droid today named John.
Hello.
And a small creature inside of a cradle. We'll say hello to Mike.
It's the opposite of me, but thanks.
Yeah. I am someone in desperate need for Mon Calamari Flan as my new currency, Ian, and I'm your host, one of your co-hosts, along with these other hosts who are also co-hosts. How's it going, guys?
I wouldn't put calamari in flan.
I also agree with this.
Yeah.
Do you think they eat flan on Mon Cal? I mean, Dak, excuse me?
It's got like 8 names, man.
We all know it is Dak.
Yep.
The appropriate name for the species that lives there.
Yes, we all know that,
The
of
quarry.
course.
There are 2 species that live there. 3 if you count the psychic whale people.
There's a freeloading race who would rather be in spaceships and the quarry.
Wow, I'm moving on from this now. Speaking of a quarren, guys, we just got done watching The Mandalorian, the first 2 episodes of The Mandalorian, now streaming on Disney+. They're not paying me to say that, but I'd like them to. I'm kidding.
I agree. I will sell out. I will sell out for that sweet Disney money.
Yep.
Hashtag give me money.
We just got done watching the first 2 episodes of The Mandalorian, and it was honestly a great experience. I really much enjoyed it, and I thought we would take a minute and talk about the things we enjoyed, the things we're looking forward to as the series moves on, and maybe some little things that maybe we didn't enjoy so much or would like to see explored less or more or whatever. So let's talk some Star Wars, guys.
Okay.
So overall, with these first 2 episodes, it's really gotten... I think the very first thing you said, Mike, when we were watching it was like, wow, it really has that Western sort of feel to it. Mm-hmm. And that kind of has brought it back to, I think, some of the feelings of the original, at least part of the original Star Wars, where you're on Tatooine, you're going to the cowboy bar and kind of the Lone Ranger Han Solo sort of thing. It's got a little bit of Firefly flavor in there, which, John, I know you and I were talking about that. But it also still really feels like a Star Wars experience. So, starting with sort of the overall feel of The Mandalorian, what do you guys think? Let's start with Mike on that one.
Okay. I really enjoyed it. It was a thoroughly enjoyable experience. It was just right off the bat, you're able to see how much fun they're having making it by the people that they put in it, some of the cameos, some of the recurring characters over the first 2 episodes, and then just how much, fun they were having by looking at the script. It was just there was a lot of moments where it was serious, and then a lot of humor in between. It wasn't just taking itself seriously the whole time. It wasn't just throwing jokes at you the entire time. It really gave the opportunity for the people that were watching it an opportunity to kind of settle in within the first 2 episodes and just kind of go from there. So really enjoyable. I'm looking forward to watching it thoroughly. And obviously there's a couple things that didn't really resonate with me, but I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to the rest of it.
Awesome. How about you, John? Overall meta thoughts on The Mandalorian?
That was pretty good. There was Star Wars at the beginning of it. There appeared to be a Star Wars at the end of it. There seems to be a Star Wars going on throughout it, so I'm a big fan of that. Just as a reminder, my favorite Star Wars movies are the Endor movies, so if you're better than that, then you're a good Star Wars movie, which basically means everything. Everything. Means everything. Especially since in that first episode they got blurgs. Blurgs are introduced in the Endor movies, and that's my favorite part. No, it's not my favorite part. My favorite part is the guy that summons taxis with a flute. I need more of him. I need his backstory. Where's his legend stories?
It's probably going to be in a book, exploring his origins.
No. Disney Plus original series.
Of
flute guy.
Flute guy sitting on ice.
He used to be a spy for the Imperials, and now he's a flute guy.
Flute guy on ice. Let's do it.
Yes. Disney
on ice
give
with
us money.
flute guy.
Please give us money.
Is that going to be the theme for tonight? Just Disney give us money?
Oh God, I hope not.
I need roughly $12.99 a month from you guys.
Yeah. If you can just cover our costs, that'd be great for watching your stuff.
But I did really like it. I like that with the Star Wars Stories movies that I feel like they kind of ended a little too soon, just because of the poor box office return of Solo. That they were trying to experiment with things that they could do in later series. It's Siri
now.
I'm gonna go Siri, yeah. But I felt a lot like with the new trilogy movies, they did a lot of kind of unnecessary exposition for things, and that's kind of a trend in modern cinema anyway, that no longer do we get my father fought in the Clone Wars and then never touch back on that until 20 years later.
Right.
We have to go, my father fought in the Clone Wars. Well, you see, the Clone Wars was this thing, blah, 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 blah. And with Rogue One, they tried it a little bit with dropping some things you probably didn't know. With Solo, I think they tried it too hard with dropping things that you probably need to know. With the exception of like Kira just dropping Terrakasi, which is a terrible video game.
Oh, love it so much.
But she didn't explain what that more than what that was.
Well, she showed what it was and then said the name of it.
Yeah, which is better than a 5-minute explanation of what Terrakasi is.
Show don't tell. It's the language of movies.
But I feel like that they've figured that out for this one, where you could have Horatio Sands as a blue man just say, "I was going to be home for Life Day," and then that's kind of
just move on.
Yeah. Talking about the currency that they use on deck. Just move on.
Yep.
Though it shouldn't be puck shaped because they say it's Mon Cal Flan, and it kind of looks like it should be eaten, and like maybe it is an edible currency. We'll have to wait till a book is written about it, or its own
comic series,
standalone show, trilogy. That could be what Ryan Johnson's thing is going to be about.
I hope not.
That sounds miserable.
No, thank you.
Mon Cal economy. Mon Cal-otomy.
It's interesting.
You're welcome, Ryan Johnson.
Wow. Okay.
Give me money.
One of the things that I really liked about the vibe that the Mandalorian set up is that I agree with you. It does have that sort of like show don't tell, mention small things, but in the way it's doing it, it really sets up kind of the world that they're living in right now. Just that little exchange with the currency, with the bounty guy, and he's like, oh, Imperial credits still spend, but I can do this, and I have less of it, That was like a 2-sentence exchange, and it sets up, what do we know from that? We know that the galactic economy is in turmoil, and that nobody's really sure what's going to spend where. They're in a transitional period. That's all conveyed in 2 sentences. And that, I really enjoy that. The characters talk as though they live in the world. They don't do that thing like you were describing, John, where it's just like, I'm going to explain my backstory because I know I'm sitting in front of an audience. They're giving us enough information that we can get the information and the world build out of it without smacking us in the face. And I really, really enjoyed that. Setting the tone for the Mandalorian is this very first scene where he walks into a bar in the middle of a frozen wasteland and gets into an altercation with 2 people, one a Quarren and a human, who are after his bounty. And I think that was a great way to kind of set the tone for this. During the trailer breakdowns, I was looking at that part where the Quarren guy kind of gets closed up into the doorway, and I was thinking to myself, okay, well, this is going to go one of 2 ways. He's either just going to be stuck in the door, and that'll kind of set the tone. Nah, dude got sliced in half, which was rad.
Not something I was expecting, like, right off the bat out of a Disney, like, product.
Right.
But That was, it was super interesting. Like, it made sense to kind of go after the bounty hunter character and introduce this main character that the whole show is going to be around this. Like, from a casual perspective, they basically tell you with words that he's a bounty hunter, and they show you what he's capable of. They show you kind of the things that he does in his job. And so it was just a perfect, like, couple minutes to spend to show you exactly who he is and what you can expect out of this character within the rest of the series.
Really, really, really well done. I agree with you completely. So let's talk characters. What stood out to you guys in the Mandalorian 2 episodes so far in terms of some of the characters that we've seen on screen, the Mandalorian himself? What are some memorable moments for you? John, let's start with you.
Flute guy, number one.
Other than Flute Guy.
Oh, what? There's other characters?
Who else?
Flute Guy.
I just like Flute guy. I mean, there's going to be the obvious ones that I'm going to talk about because I'm sure everyone's going to talk about them over here. So I'm going to go deep cut side characters. Let's go with Constable Zuvio making a cameo.
There's a reason to own that figure now.
Yeah. Mike, are you familiar with Constable Zuvio?
I know of his figure, yes.
Yes, okay.
That was an interesting birthday.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We gave Ian Constable Zuvio's
both of us
figures.
Two different ones.
I'm pretty sure they're still on the shelf somewhere.
One's out of the package, one's still in the box somewhere.
Oh, no, I meant like in Target.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I like that there was stuff like that, like throwbacks to Zuvio. There was one of Infy's Nest writers from Solo in the bar. I think there was a blue Rhodian from Solo in there, if I remember right. And the inclusion of all like legacy style aliens, like when we later in the episode we come across Weequay and Klaatu and Trandoshans. There might have been a Nikto.
Ugnaught.
It's
Jawas.
It's just really fun to try to remember those three of them because they're all the words to summon Cthulhu. Mm-hmm. Klaatu, Barada, Nikto. Mm-hmm. They just like, we'll make them aliens. Because we're lazy. Give me money. Disney.
You can't just call them lazy and then ask for money.
No, that was 21st Century Fox that was lazy. Actually, it might have been Kenner.
It
was probably
Kenner.
Yeah. Panda face. Yak face.
Hammerhead.
Wolf guy.
Wolf bro.
Farm person.
Farm person.
Farm hero. What were we talking about?
Characters?
Oh, that's
Characters.
right. Characters. Yeah. Yeah, but I guess for me it was more like the all these like throwbacks to other characters that I know there was a lot of complaints in the sequel trilogy that we're kind of getting new aliens instead of the old aliens.
I'm not sure if there was I'm not sure if there were a lot of complaints, but that is a complaint.
There was a lot.
That was a complaint that I had about those movies. Because, you want it to blend and feel like it's a continuation of the worlds. And I think that I actually had that written down my notes as well. I really like how they blended new and old in this series.
Especially that Quarren, who, as opposed to having just a rubber mask face, had a Captain Barbossa face. No, not Barbossa. I messaged you about this. What's that guy's name? Davy Jones. He had a Davy Jones face. Like, the CG on his tentacle head was pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. I like that a lot. How about you, Mike? Characters that stood out?
I mean,
Horatio Sands.
To start, the ones that you knew who they were in real life. Like I caught Horatio Sands, Brian Posehn, like Nick Nolte was in it, Herzog, like all those people. It's really cool that these people that probably grew up as Star Wars fans, or some people that were never going to be a part of the Star Wars story, are now part of that. Like Brian Posehn's never going to forget that he was in Star Wars. Like that's really cool to start out.
And then eaten by walrus.
Right, obviously. Outside of that, I think the other Mandalorian, the one that like gave him his shoulder armor, I think I would love to see a little bit more out of that character.
Right.
That's definitely like it gave you a little backstory, but there's going to be a lot more to that character if they show up again. So the depth out of that would be really cool to see. And then just like Nick Nolte's character was really rad. He has spoken. He gave us a lot of comedic moments, as well as kind of he got the storyline through the first couple episodes. Like when he gets there, he kind of introduces them to the area, and then gives, it's the hero's journey or whatever. He's
right.
like that first character that kind of teaches him how to go about what is his next step. And then, he sets him on the path and then, gets him to where we left off in episode 2. So that was a really cool character that I really enjoyed. And it was really fun.
Very nice. I was particularly, I very much also enjoyed the Mandalorian Smith. I want to know more about her. I like that in the lore, Beskar iron, the Mandalorian iron, that's like a big deal, and it's like a very culturally significant thing.
I'm saving that clip and I'm renaming the episode, though.
Oh, great. Yeah, good job spelling it. It's a very culturally significant thing to them. And that whole scene really brings that across in a way that we haven't really seen in any other media before. Side note, she's got horns on her helmet, and I would be interested to know if that's a holdover from when Darth Maul was the head of the Mandalorians in Clone Wars. I'd be really interested to know if that was done for that reason, or if it's just kind of a cool decorative thing. But that's like a deep lore cut that me and 10% of the population would be interested in.
Of course, Dave Filoni stuck that in there since he was
in
charge of that whole thing.
I would love that.
I'm surprised there were no wolves in the first episode. Dave Filoni likes wolves.
Okay.
It's an understatement.
Oh.
Yeah, that's accurate. I also really enjoyed Werner Herzog's character. He literally looked like he wanted to eat the Mandalorian the entire time. Just the sheer intensity of that character. This is a guy that's clearly used to his orders being followed without question and really exudes that imperial nature. And you can tell, like, the fact that he needs to be hiding out in a basement with bunch of stormtroopers that look like they've just crawled out of a battlefield. Like, this is not his element. This is not where he wants to be, and he wants to get back on top. And that just, the intensity was really felt in that scene. What did you guys think of IG-11?
Oh, the bounty bot?
Yeah, the bounty bot. He wants to activate self-destruct.
He seemed like too efficient of a bot to be in Star Wars.
Okay.
Like, he was too good at what he was doing, and he's too good at being able to kill things. Like, he was designed by people that are notoriously terrible at shooting things. So it didn't make sense. But no, it was a cool character. I appreciated that he was so willing to die over and over again for the good of the people. But yeah, it was a fun way to bring humor into a very serious situation and show that the Mandalorian wasn't going to be this unbeatable force. He's going to ask for help. Later on, you see that he loses basically a fight. So
a couple fights.
Yeah, I think it was important to it's this very stoic figure, but you're able to see him be vulnerable so many times within the first couple episodes. I thought that was a touch that I wasn't really expecting, in all honesty.
I wasn't either. I absolutely agree with you. I think that it really adds more character. He's not just a super soldier, who's unstoppable and unbeatable, who the story happens around him. It seems like he's really part of the story, even though he has some of those stoic super soldier elements to him. He definitely has more of a personality, even if it's not one that we're used to seeing. I absolutely agree. What do you think, John?
I like that guy. I see what you're saying about being too efficient. That particular droid series in Star Wars in the history is kind of notorious for being too efficient at their jobs. The thing that I found interesting is they didn't just go with the one named character from Empire Strikes Back. It was another droid that looked like him as one of the bounty hunters, named IG-88. And Mike, in Legends, I don't think this is still true in canon, he was developed as an assassin droid, and then they got him off the line, and then he just murdered everyone in the facility, took over the facility, and then just cloned himself with the other droids.
Yeah, he kind of hive-minded.
There's IG-88B, but there's also like IG-88 through the rest of the letters, so you never know which one you're fighting.
Okay.
And yeah, they're just like him. They're just like obnoxiously efficient and terrifying, and just like, I have a job and you're in my way, and everyone needs to get murdered. This one seemed to be a little bit more like open to suggestion by just standing in the middle of the street and waiting for responses.
Yep, I enjoyed that. No concept of taking cover. He's like, I'm either going to win or I'm going to blow up.
Yeah.
You know, these are my options. Speaking of side characters real quick, the doctor character with Werner Herzog, Pershing, he has a patch on him that indicates that he has some knowledge of the cloning program in Camino. And what I like about that is that you don't need to know that in order to continue this story.
Yeah.
But if you do know that, for the extreme deep lore people like myself, it's a really cool kind of like Easter egg reward kind of thing.
Yeah, so the emblem that he's wearing was worn by clones that were training, not by the cloners.
Right.
So I think that's interesting because he's definitely too young to be a clone of Django.
Yeah, he's also not nearly Kiwi enough to
Yeah.
be a... Let's get into some of the action scenes before we go deeper into the story. So we had a couple really cool action scenes that were all pretty varied, I think. We got the bar fight scene in the very beginning. We had the zapping of the large walrus monster. We had the Blurg fight. We had the Jawa fight. We had the Western shootout with IG-11. And we had the quest for the egg, where he got beat up by a giant rhinoceros.
Rock.
So how are we feeling about the action? I personally think it's very Star Wars. It feels very Star Wars. The variety of it is really good, especially because, you know, we've got 2 episodes so far. None of it really felt forced to me, and it was one heck of a good time and varied.
Yeah, like when you just listed out all of those action scenes, I'm like, oh yeah, that was a lot. I don't, like, if I had to tell you which ones there were, I'd probably say there's a couple every episode, but yeah, there was obviously more than that, and that makes me think that that makes me feel like it is flowing into the story as opposed to just being forced at you. Like, This is an action show as opposed to... This is like a character show where action takes place as well. So I thought that was really cool. Some of the highlights, the big shootout, just made it feel like so much of a Western. Everybody like on tops of buildings and like behind cover, and there's a big door that you have to blow up at the end. It was like super cliche Western stuff, and I thought that was awesome to be able to like finish episode 1 with that, just really establishing that. Like, it started with a super the episode started with a super big Western scene, and then it finished with the same thing. And so that was a great way to introduce everybody to the story. And then stuff in action, in episode 2, it was, that big rhinoceros scene, or the one where he's getting on the giant tank and then getting zapped and losing like in 2 seconds after this huge amount of effort that he puts into it. I thought that was really cool and just built up the character a lot. Like I said earlier, he's not unbeatable, and you're able to see that it's just a guy instead of this unbeatable killing machine. So yeah, it really flowed through the story, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how that just kind of meshes with the rest of the character build up the rest of the way.
Absolutely. How about you, John?
I gotta agree with what Mike said earlier, that they didn't shy away from showing that the Mandalorian isn't the greatest fighter of his generation. He's still learning stuff, especially in the second episode where he fails to be the action star twice, but also going back to when he goes back to visit the Mandalorian tribe, clan, house, wherever it is, and the weaponsmith asks him if he's received it, or if he's
his signet.
Yeah, he hasn't received his signet yet, or something like that, or sigil. And he says no, which, like, for me, from playing way too many fantasy games with Yui, and that generally means that he's not a knight yet, so to speak. He's still on his process of going there.
He's like a level 2 or 3 character.
Yeah.
It's about level 10.
He hasn't, or he's a level 10 that multi-classed in the wrong classes. Like fighter bard.
Did not min-max the right way.
Yeah.
Hate to see it.
Hate to see it.
The thing I really enjoyed about the action sequences is the varied sort of use of weapons and skills that we see, because that's kind of a thing that Mandalorians are known for in lore, but in practice we've really only seen, Jango Fett, I think, who's probably the best.
Not a Mandalorian.
I know, but he was the best sort of example of the using of the various sort of Mandalorian items, with the shooting and the jetpack and the rockets and the flamethrower. When we go into Rebels, it's a lot. It's not nearly as varied, except for maybe on Sabine. At least I don't remember it being such. I just remember it being a lot more combat oriented in terms of just like straight up blaster fire and jetpacks.
Yeah, and
I really enjoy how we kind of bring it back to that lore with the Mandalorian, where he's using he has all these tools on his tool belt for combat, and he's able to sort of pick and choose the right times to use different ones. It makes all the scenes really interesting, really varied, and the combat is more, I think, interesting than just your normal Star Wars shootout, which I still love, don't get me wrong, but there's only so much of watching people behind cover shoot at things that you can only watch that so many times before it kind of gets old. And I think that The Mandalorian really spices up its combat with those scenes.
I think it felt very like mechanical as opposed to like fantasy. Like there's so many instances, like you said, where he was pulling something else out, but also like his gun misfiring because it was covered in mud,
right.
Or the various different scenes where he's just he's presented with an object in front of him to deal with, and he has to figure out like what's the best use out of all the things that he has. Like he had that line in the second episode where it was like, my rifle or my gun is like part of my religion or whatever it was. Yep. So I was excited to see that, yes, that's like going to be his main like weapon. When you think of him, you think of that rifle as well, but there's so many different aspects that he could pull out to kind of get to what he needs to out of the situation. I thought it was really cool.
Absolutely.
Can we talk about how useless his flamethrower is?
Oh, I love that so much.
He gets attacked by a blarg, flames it, misses. He gets attacked by the rhino, the fur rhino, and he just flames it in the face for like a good 4 seconds, and the rhino's like, no, get out of here. And the only time it's ever effective is when he throws it at some Jawas for insulting his armor.
I'm not necessarily sure that that's even effective, too.
No, it was not.
He missed.
Like,
point blank flamethrower to the face, and the Jawa just dodged out of the way.
Yeah, and came back like, whatever, dude. I live on desert planet.
I don't care about your fire.
Your fire's colder than our sun.
I mean, as someone that watches BattleBots, I know like all of the ones that shoot fire are the worst ones.
Worthless.
Yeah,
absolutely worthless.
So anybody would know that.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, no, Jango Fett used it too against a rhino monster.
Yeah.
And all that made him do was get picked up and rolled around.
I think he successfully lit someone's cloak on fire, and that was about it.
Yeah,
and then the dude just took his cloak off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it was...
I think it was one at NSYNC that was set on fire.
What about NSYNC?
NSYNC?
Jango Fett set NSYNC on fire?
They were Jedis. They gave Obi-Wan and Anakin their lightsabers.
Oh my god, were they really? How do I not know this? Lore nugget.
I'm going to have to Google this real quick because it might be the Backstreet Boys. They're very interchangeable. I'm
pretty
sorry,
sure
Mike.
it was NSYNC.
I still didn't know that boy bands were involved in the Jedi Order, so this is changing all things.
Of Dem clones.
Dem clones. Dem little cloners.
We'll be right back. Here's a message from one of our sponsors. Disney, please give us money.
That's not a sponsor.
Disney
Love
gives us money.
John. If they were paying us, they'd be a sponsor.
It's Joey Fatone and someone else.
insane.
I don't really want to click on anything else.
That's all I need to know.
Almost made a cameo.
It's super weird, dude.
Didn't sync from Jedi. Yeah, they're in there.
I can't believe I didn't know that. Seems like fake nerd. Wow. Not just fake Star Wars fan. Fake nerd entirely.
Right. Not a nerd at all.
That's nuts. So there was a Big.
Big.
I mean,
Big.
big.
I mean, big. There was kind of a big reveal at the end of episode 1. All the talk around the Mandalorian, a lot of it was kind of centered around, we're finally going to get a series that has very little Force interaction, lots of underworld stuff, and a lot of us were behind that. And we have the reveal that he's been sent to capture a child who is not only Force sensitive, and we're talking like infant, style Force sensitive.
50-year-old infant, yep.
Yeah, but is also a member of Yoda's species. And I'm really interested to hear what you guys feel about it, because of course I'm the the Forcey Warsy fanboy, but I too was also looking forward to seeing maybe a little bit less of that in this series. But I also don't feel like it breaks it. So let's start with you, Mike.
Okay.
And what were how do you feel about that character being introduced?
Because I had watched the first 2 episodes a few days after they had come out, it was already spoiled to me. I went on Twitter, and so obviously everybody was talking about Baby Yoda, and just like most of the people, when you look at him, you're like, okay, I love this character. It's adorable, and it's a little tiny Yoda and a magic egg. So obviously I want more of this. I had gone into it kind of with the same thought that I had with Solo, that I was hoping with Solo didn't get with Solo, which was I'm hoping for a story that doesn't have a galactic impact. And I feel like that was already broken within the first episode. But again, I think there's a lot more hope. We have a lot more episodes to go. It doesn't have to be the completely overarching story. It doesn't have to be an overbearing character where it takes over the story. It's still the Mandalorian. It's still, this rad bounty hunter. So I don't think I'm a lot more hopeful that that's just going to be a little part of the story, and it's not going to just overtake it and all this Force is going to be magically forced on us. We got that with the last fight, but I thought it was just a really cool introduction to the character to give little Baby Yoda a little bit more of insight into what his powers are currently. I'm fine with that. If he can stop a rhino for a little bit. As long as that is not happening 3 times an episode, I think it's going to be completely fine. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, like I said, I don't want the galactic impact of this story being the most important thing in the world currently, because we're showing you and because it's Star Wars. So we'll see how it goes.
Fair enough. John?
I was legitimately afraid that this exact thing was going to happen, that the Mandalorian's first bounty was going to be some sort of young Force-sensitive child that he now needs to protect. And Firefly's idea, and so many other space westerns idea. But I think it being a baby Yaddle, because I'm going with the Yaddle. Yaddle is another Yoda.
I believe you.
I think it's because it's that race that, even in Legends, we really didn't know anything about Yoda's race. We don't even know the name of his race, as far as I know. I don't read books, though, so I could be wrong.
We don't know.
I think, and also having it as, an infant that probably doesn't know anything about the Order at all, probably just naturally part of its species, naturally gifted in the wiggle finger ways. I think it opens up an opportunity for us to learn more about that species, and that kind of softens the blow to me that, we're not going to get through one episode without the Force being part of this.
I, of course, liked it a lot because I am a Forcey Warsy fanboy, but I agree with you, Mike. I think that there's a good chance that this won't be the overarching plotline. I just don't see, and even if it does kind of have some of those elements, I don't see the machinations of one dude in the basement with a couple stormtroopers being something that will have huge galactic consequences. So I agree with you. I think it's going to be a little bit more reined in. I don't see it taking over the entire thing. I agree with you, John, in the fact that, using this up as an opportunity to explore Yoda's race as opposed to just another Force-sensitive kid, because we've seen that story, we've played that story, we've read that story.
You're currently playing that story.
Yeah, I'm currently running that story in a
Oh no, I meant
one-off.
Fallen Order.
Yeah, I'm currently playing that story. It's really... I think it was used appropriately and in a restrained manner. Much like Chirrut in Rogue One, where it was a little bit of that Force spice thrown in for us fanboys of the Force, but not so much that it overshadowed the entire story. And I think it'll continue that way. The Mandalorian is an interesting enough character, and I think that the fact that this child is there is really helping us learn more about him as a character, because of how he shot IG-11 in order to save the child from being killed. He went through enormous lengths to keep the kid safe, and yeah, he's turning him in for a bounty, but so that just kind of adds to the nature of the questions that we have about him and his character. What's this guy about? Where's his moral line? What will he do? What won't he do? He seems to have heart, but he's also hardened. Instead of it usurping that concept, Baby Yoda, Baby Yaddle, Baba Yaga is enforcing the Mandalorian as a character. So I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes from here. So we've got some unanswered questions, some things that kind of set up to see where it goes for the next couple episodes. So what are some things you guys want to see going forward? Some questions you're looking forward to being answered? Or what do you want to see in the next couple episodes? Because we'll probably reconvene and come back and talk about them too. So let's start with John.
Oh, that's me. Real quick, going back to the Baby Yaddle thing. A thing that I did like is that when Baby Yaddle, Baby Yoda, Baba Yaga used their power, it took them out. Like,
oh yeah.
It's strong in the Force, but also it takes so much out that leaves me hope that we're not just going to get Baby Yoda becoming the main hero of this story, because he's the one that can do everything. So I was appreciative of that. What am I looking forward to? I want to know more about his little Mando tribe that lurks in the dark, hangs out and plays board games. And I don't know if you noticed it, but even like the Mando kids running around in the tunnels had helmets on.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which I thought was interesting. For me, the biggest hook for it right now is when he's getting the pauldron made, the armorsmith. She has like an official name. I can't remember what it is. She mentions that the supply of Beskar is generous, and that a lot of the excess will sponsor foundlings. Which then the Mando replies, "I was a foundling once," which kind of goes back to Old Republic, where the Mando, like a Mandalorian, wasn't just specifically a particular race of humans or whatever. It was anybody could be a Mandalorian as long as you followed the Mandalorian code and proved yourself.
It was a culture.
Yeah. And so I think they're kind of bringing that into the main canon timeline, especially since in the movies, this is the first, or like in live action, this is the first time we've seen a Mandalorian, a real Mandalorian, a real Mandalorian.
Yes, I know, John.
I'm interested more in what Dave Filoni started in the Clone Wars, is learning about the culture of Mandalore, and seeing how it's changed. Because from Legends we know it is one thing, and then in the Clone Wars it became something else when they tried to be pacifist, and it just didn't work with the Empire around. So like what happened afterwards is interesting to me. There's a Baby Yoda, by the way. I don't know if you guys saw that. Mike, your thoughts?
I would also like to see a little bit more about the Mandalorian tribe. I think that's definitely something that you can dig a little bit deeper into. The other thing that I'm looking forward to is I'm going to liken this to a video game. Since like 5 minutes into the first episode, we've been on like the story mission. I want to get back to the side missions. I want to see more about this bounty hunter life that we've kind of almost ignored after that first first scene in that first episode where he's actually a bounty hunter. Like right now he's on a companion quest with this Baby Yoda thing, and I'd like to be able to him to look at a bounty board and pick up more quests, see what more about that other life that we've kind of almost ignored ever since then. So that's definitely what I want to get back into.
That's cool. Yeah, that's good. I like that. Both good. Both things I also want to see explored more. Another thing I'm looking forward to is kind of figuring out who is kind of working him over here, because he ran into IG-11, who had a fob also for that bounty, and he thought he was the only one on it. And then the Trandoshans, who appeared and started attacking him also for that bounty. So somebody or many people are...
I think it's many people.
Yeah.
Because IG-11's directive was bring it back dead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's a bigger sort of something going on, and that I'm looking forward to. That, the end of the main quest storyline there. But I agree with both of you. I think that those are also things I'd like to see explored more going forward. Any final kind of comments on The Mandalorian, the 2 episodes we've seen so far? I really like the giant walrus monster.
Yes.
I'll go into kind of like a couple of the gripes that I had with the episode.
Yeah, let's hear some gripes.
One thing that I was worried about, that I stopped being worried about, like at the beginning, was that when we were in that scene with the Smith, she said something that brought him into a flashback. And I was worried that was going to be how they developed this character. They were going to put a bunch of different flashbacks. That's how we got his backstory. I'm glad to see that didn't happen through the rest of the first couple episodes, but I was worried that, oh my gosh, they're just going to throw us flashbacks, and that's how we know about this character. So that was one thing. The other thing is, the music's good, but I think it's way overbearing for the scenes that they put in it. Like, the epicness that they throw into the most mundane scenes was just, it was too much for me. I thought that they could have definitely toned that down, and made either the dialogue or the action take a little bit more of a role in how you felt about it, as opposed to building you up through just the music. I thought it tried too much to make the story epic, when it's really, everything else that should be doing that. It should be a compliment, not its own thing.
Fair enough. John? Gripes?
Force user in the first episode. It's my only gripe, but then it happened to be a Yodamans, and now I want to know more about the Yodamans. Yeah, please and thank you.
Midichlorian chewable gummies.
I'm glad that we've had a lot of action scenes and stuff, but it feels like it's moving slower than I think we're used to in this sort of genre, which I think is good. Yeah, especially because it's a television quote show that
series.
Yeah. So what I'm really hoping that they don't do the classic American thing of, hey, people like the show, let's run it for 13 seasons and then just run it into the ground, and then ask ourselves why no one liked the last season or the last 8 seasons. And if we could just follow the British pattern of, let's just end it and move on. I would like that.
I think the fact that it's on a streaming service is going to help it go in that direction.
And I do like that they are releasing it week by week. As much as I'd rather, I'd want to binge watch it all, then we'd binge watch it all, and then we'd just be sitting there waiting for the last season of Clone Wars to come out. Dave. I don't think he's actually working on it.
Yeah. I had 2 gripes. One kind of connects to your music thing.
Not enough walrus, we know.
When we get that scene where he's fighting the cave rhino for the egg, there's a musical store that starts where I couldn't tell if it was the creature screaming or the music.
Nice.
Was it that scratching noise?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, what is happening? And then also in that very scene, there was a really weird moment, and this is such a tiny, editor gripe, where...
The slow-mo?
Yeah. It was this really weird slow-mo moment. It wasn't used anywhere in the other 2 episodes. It was only used once for 2 seconds, and it didn't make any sense.
And it wasn't like a high film speed slow-mo. No. It was, we need to make the scene last 2 seconds longer.
Yeah.
Frame-skipping slow-mo.
It was super weird and distracting, and it took me out of the moment for a second. which but that again, like, I think we can agree all around that.
I think we could fix it if we just add him saying McClunky over that part.
That's good. I'll go with that.
McClunky. I think that we can agree. Our gripes are kind of small.
Yes,
and we're looking forward to seeing where this goes.
They are the gripes of people that didn't find any major gripes and are scrounging to find something negative so that we can have something to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
But it's so minimal that, like, who cares?
Right.
Episode 3, please.
Yeah.
Disney give
It didn't
us money.
ruin Star Wars for you?
No, it had that good Marvel humor.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
I've told that story on the podcast.
Yes,
I think.
sure.
Yeah,
Please don't go about it again.
Yeah, no, I've told that on the podcast. In other Star Wars news, McClunky is a thing.
I feel like John almost sabotaged me to be able to take this seriously because I just had McClunky in my head, which we watched immediately before we started recording. So I'm a little bummed, but yeah, that was some edit right there.
Yeah. So the story behind this is that before Disney acquired the rights, there was another change made to the Greedo and Han scene in the version of New Hope that they were going to release, where he changes who shot first again. Now they shoot simultaneously on the same frame, and Greedo decides to shoot McClunky. Shout!
Yep.
Greedo decides to shout McClunky for no reason.
It might have been Greedo. It was a completely different voice and cadence.
No reason, no subtitle.
How great would that have been if there just happened to be another Rodian sitting in the booth next to him? Like, what's going on here?
McClunky! And it's one of those things where it's so dumb, I can't hate it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's I go back to it, I laugh. I don't know why or what the reasoning is behind it, but I love it so much. I think one of the things that's really funny is that I've seen almost an equal amount of talk about McClunky as I have about The Mandalorian.
Good.
And that makes me laugh. But yeah, upcoming in Star Wars, we have the next season of Clone Wars. The last season of Clone Wars. I'm really interested to see if they're going to tie any of the Mandalorian, the Battle of Mandalore, Fall of Mandalore stuff that's coming out. If any of that's going to play any part in The Mandalorian, if it's going to be referenced at all, I think that'll be very interesting. Of course, we've got Rise of Skywalker coming out. All three of us are going to see the movie on opening night. So all three of us will have a report back to you then for that. As you heard in the beginning of this episode, we are also letting you know this year about the Kessel Toy Run. And John did a great job letting you know about that in our last Echo Base Nights. For more information, go ahead and check out the description. We also have the continuing Resistance. Season 2 is going on, and we'll have our Resistance recons resuming very shortly, as soon as I get my head out of my buttocks and actually watch the episodes.
So lazy. All my notes are ready to go. They have been for a week now.
So hopefully we'll get that out sooner rather than later. We'll get that good and going. Gentlemen, any final notes before we wrap up this episode of Hoth Topics? Mike, anything to add before we close up?
No, I think that just about does it.
All right. Thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Hoth Topics. I have been Ian.
And I'm looking at Kung Fu and Phoenix.
That was John.
Mike's here as well.
And that's roommate Mike. Thank you very much, everybody. We will see you next time. May the Force be with you.
McClunky.
And also with you.
And also you as well. McClunky on your house.
McClunky on your house. McClunky on your dog.
McClunky on your cow.